I'm currently creating a review for the creator. That was bad, I'm sorry. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm giving you my review of The Creator, the new sci-fi film directed by Rogue One director Gareth Edwards. Before I give you guys my thoughts on this thing, be sure to hit that like button, comment down below your thoughts on the film if you've seen it, your expectations or predictions if you have not. Subscribe to that notification bell to help me reach my goal of 100,000 subscribers here on the channel. It will mean a lot. And be sure to check out The Unusual Couple podcast. That is linked down below. Weekly episodes with myself, my girlfriend Cam. So yeah, I saw The Creator last week. I have an out-of-theater reaction that I'll link up above. But this is my full-on review as the embargo has lifted. And I have a lot to say about this one. So I'll start with things I liked. Without question, the biggest praise I can give this movie is the fact that it is visually stunning. And I know that it's easy to throw that term around. Trust me, I throw that term around, but only when it's warranted. And that's the case with this movie. It only has an $80 million budget, and this is full-on proof that a movie does not need to have a $200 million plus budget in order to look impressive visually. It was so hyper-realistic at times that it added to the immersion of the world and the story they were trying to tell, made me feel like I was actually in this world with our characters in this futuristic world, and this is how it should be done. Like, the visual effects that were used for this movie need to be implemented in all the other big blockbuster films, because if the MCU and DC films looked like this, I think they would get a better reputation, and I'm not sure what technology exactly went in to make this film look the way it did, because it just didn't have that like glossy CGI feel to it. Everything looked tangible, and it didn't have that gloss, which is easy to take me out of a movie, especially one like this, where the visual effects are of utmost importance to the actual story. It did not take me out of it once. It added to the immersion, if anything. So I have to commend the visual effects for this film. They're a huge part of the film, as AI robots essentially are a main character that moves the plot forward. And not only do those robots look amazing, but just there will be like huge space stations in the sky, and they don't feel fake. I bought in to the world this movie set up. But if I had to argue for something I liked even more than the visuals of this film, the score was almost too good to be in this movie. Like, this was a score that belonged in like the best Nolan movie. And you want to know why it's that good? Because Hans Zimmer composed it. And I did not know that until I was sitting there watching the credits roll and it said music composed by Hans Zimmer, and I was like, checks out, because there were multiple tracks during this movie where I had full body chills. Like, the actual scene wasn't as moving as I might have wanted it to be, but the score was. A chill would start in my forehead and just go all the way down to my toes. Like, it was a full body chill just because of how great the score was. And this shows the power of music, because there were certain scenes that were a little underwhelming. I'll talk about that later in the review, but the score fully enhanced this movie for me, and the power of music can go a very, very long way. Hans Zimmer crushed it here, and honestly, would not be upset if he got nominated, because it is one of the better scores I've heard this year. It's no Oppenheimer, I hate to compare, but it is one of the best scores I've heard this year, easily. I've seen a lot going around about John David Washington's performance, and how people don't believe he can really be a leading man. I'm gonna disagree with that. To me, I walked out of this movie, I was like, John David Washington was one of the highlights for me. Obviously, he's great in Tenet. He plays this confused man on a mission really well. There's moments where he's able to show his charisma and even get some laughs out of me. Like, it's a very serious movie by nature, but it still has those moments where John David Washington can make the audience laugh with his natural charisma, and like there will be a high stakes situation where they got to get out of it, and he'll crack like a one-liner that got me. So I bought into him in this lead role. The man can act, and I think it's time we put some respect on his name, because I thought he was great as the lead role in this film. Now, when it comes down to the main plot of the film, I love the idea. Like, on paper, love it. However, it kind of fails in execution and unfortunately fizzles out a bit for me. Like, the first 30 minutes of this movie, I was all in. I was like, oh my gosh, this is about to be an elite sci-fi movie, potentially one of the best movies of the year. Without revealing too much, there's a scene where like this squadron are on these ships and they're going to get dropped off, and a certain song was played, and I was like, oh, this is my vibe. This movie is about to kick ass. And then after this sort of opening mission, kind of lost me. And the reason being is it felt like a rehash of a lot of these generic tropes we've seen in tons of other movies before. Like, the first 25-30 minutes, I was sold on this movie, but it started to fizzle out, and honestly, I began to check out. I think the main factor as to why my interest was waning is because there were portions of this movie where it felt like there was no main conflict, and even as we approach, near the end of the film, or what I thought was the end of the film, there was really no main conflict left to resolve. The movie loses focus to me. It has a great setup. And then the main plot kind of kicks into gear, and it's just like we're in meander mode for 30 minutes, and it didn't really do anything to progress the narrative forward, which made for a pretty lackluster experience. The movie's about 2 hours and 13 minutes long, and I felt like it was about a 2 hour, 45 minute movie. It was overly long, and the reason it felt overly long is because it lost focus so much. There's a sequence in this film that I was fully convinced was the third act of the movie. Structurally speaking, I had followed it. I was like, okay, this is definitely the third act of the movie. And then there was still about 30 or 40 minutes after, and I was blown away by that. I was like, how is this movie still going? I'd run out of gas as a viewer at that point, and the movie had lost steam for me. And it just kept going, and I was like, huh, we're building up to this third act, and at that point, I didn't really even feel much for the characters anymore, because certain ideas had just been brushed over, and I was like, man, this could have been a lot deeper. And what really got under my skin is this movie thought it was smarter than it was. There are plot points that are predictable as hell. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Like, a lot of this movie, you'll be like, huh, I might be able to connect the dots here. And then the movie tries to act like it's this big thing at a certain point, and I'm dancing around spoilers, so if you've seen the movie at this point, you'll probably know what I'm referring to. But I was like, is this supposed to be some like revelation for the audience? This is pretty obvious. It's always unfortunate when a movie thinks it's smarter than it is. I always felt like I was just a few steps ahead, and let me know down below if you've seen the movie, if you feel the same way. But if I had to describe the creator in one word, it would be ambitious to a fault. I said that in my out of theater reaction. This movie has a lot of grand ideas it's trying to introduce and push, and to me it never really fully committed to this AI and diving further into the relationships. There was a lot of surface level stuff here, which is fine. The movie still got entertainment value. I was just surprised the movie ended how it did. It builds up to this really rushed finale, in my opinion, and I was baffled that the movie was actually over. It didn't feel earned to me, and it doesn't help that there were about 5 points in this movie where I legitimately thought, oh, this is the end of the movie, and it just kept on going. It's one of those movies where I'm like, oh, it's over. Oh, wow, we still have 30 minutes left. Just a weird feeling. But above all else, I'm really surprised by like the lack of actual action in this movie, because I feel like that's something that the common moviegoer is going to go see this movie expecting to see and walk out pretty let down. There's not many action sequences here. There's a few chase scenes and, you know, tension-filled moments, but it's way more of a sci-fi and tries to be like a thinking film, but in reality, it's like not that. Again, the creator has entertainment value. I was hooked for about 30 minutes until it lost me. Visually, this movie is stunning. Like, if you're into just looking at gorgeous films on the big screen, it might be worth the watch just for you to go check out the visuals and listen to that Hans Zimmer score blaring, sending chills down your spine. John David Washington's charismatic enough, but I don't really see myself ever going back to this movie, just to be completely blunt with you guys. Maybe if it was on a plane for free, or maybe as like background noise if it ever hits Netflix or something. But I really thought this was going to be so much more, and it felt fairly surface level to me personally. I bought into the visuals, I bought into the score. I like John David Washington as the main character here. They could have fleshed out so much more in this world. And ultimately, for a movie that ended up feeling overly long, had a fairly rushed finale. So the creator has its moments, and while it's relevant, especially in terms of this AI plotline, we live in a world with AI, it's surprisingly recycled in terms of its main story and plot. It feels like something we've seen before. Wanted to love the creator, walked out pretty underwhelmed. I'm interested to see what you guys think of this one when you watch it. But those are just my quick thoughts on the creator. This is just my 2 cents, my honest opinion. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. That's just how I feel about the movie. I can't help it if I hurt your feelings. If you wanted to love this movie, go watch it and form your own opinion. I implore you. Subscribe and hit that notification bell to help me reach my goal of 100,000 subscribers here on the channel. It will mean a lot. And of course, drop a like. It means more than you know. But thank you guys for checking out my content as always. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.